Hello, welcome to the deep dive. A flu-powered deep dive on my end. Ian's full of energy and health as usual. He's going to have to carry this show like he does so many. But we want to carry you guys to Inside Texas. That is the premier place to talk about Longhorn football, college sports, any sports, random things, lawn care, whatever you're into. That's the place to go do it. Come join it. And make sure before you do that, you like the video, subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, Ian. That's what I've been told to say. You smash the like button because that suggests drive and action. And speaking of drive and action, Quinn Ewers is now beginning his drive to the NFL draft. Quinn Ewers, 3-year starter for the Texas Longhorns, an integral part of the resurgence of Texas football under Steve Sarkisian, is declaring for the NFL draft. I guess all the cognoscenti who decided that he was going to be starting for Oregon next year didn't quite understand the dynamics at play there, did they, Ian?
They did not. I think the fact that he skipped his senior year of high school to get into college should have been the clue that he was going to go to the NFL and not follow up a long and illustrious Texas career with a stop somewhere else.
I think that's right. And I think also it's one of these situations where people want to are always looking for sort of the aggrieved party anytime there's a parting. And both sides got what they needed. Texas got their quarterback and they got their resurgence. Quinn Ewers got his offense and he got his ability to write his legacy in Longhorn legend, right? So whatever your feelings about Quinn Ewers and how you rank him in the pantheon of Texas quarterbacks, he does have an objective legacy. And I just want to give you a quick statistical overview of that because, there are lies, damn lies in statistics, but statistics exist and live forever. And his statistics, and they live forever in the Longhorn pantheon. He finished his career in most of the top 5 statistical categories at Texas all time. That's a tribute to his production. It's a tribute to who he played with. It's a tribute to the fact that we discovered the forward pass in the late 1980s. So that's also going to be a factor. But nevertheless, we're not unusual in that regard in college football. He finishes with 9,128 passing yards. That is 3rd all-time in Texas Longhorn football history. Do you know who he's behind, Ian?
Colt McCoy.
1. That's numero uno.
Sam Ehlinger.
Sam Ehlinger's number 2.
4 years is hard to beat.
Hard to beat. Volume plays a role.
Yes.
It's like the old great commercial this is the old Saturday Night Live commercial about a bank that only makes change. Have you ever seen this? You should look it up. It's a classic.
I missed that one.
They ask us, how do we make money doing this? The answer is volume. So, it's a pretty great commercial. You guys need to look it up if you've never seen it.
Does it involve Norm?
No. It's an older Saturday Night Live when they were even more clever and more topical. Although Norm I miss greatly. So in addition to the 9,128 passing yards, 3rd all-time in just raw passing yardage, he ends up with 68 touchdowns. That's 3rd all-time also in the passing touchdowns list. Career passing efficiency rating of 148. Completed almost 65% of his passes at 7.8 yards per attempt. Statistically, his best year was actually last year, his sophomore year. Yeah. But he had another 3,000-yard passing season this year, and he fought through quite a few injuries, both reported and unreported. Definitely a guy who persevered for Texas and got out there whenever he could, even when he was hurt. And they say that you have to decide between playing hurt and playing injured. He played hurt and he played injured for Texas, and that's something I think Texas fans appreciate. Also, a career 2.8 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio. That ain't shabby. And something I've written about, and of course you've talked about, despite all the gunslinger media babble or national media babble about him, actually one of the most careful guys with the ball leaving his hand in Texas history at quarterback, second only to one player in interception rate. Do you know who that is?
I want to say Ehlinger.
It's Ehlinger. Yeah, Ehlinger took incredible care of the ball. And Ewers did too, 2.1% lifetime interception rate. So he actually threw the most interceptions of his career this year. Probably not unrelated to some of the injuries. But His rushing legacy, because we have to talk about rushing if you're a Texas fan, the inventors and progenitors of the wishbone. Also, one Vincent Paul Young, pretty good running the football. Colt McCoy, not too shabby. Sam, not too shabby. Not a strength for Quinn. He finishes his career with negative 59 rushing yards. But he did have a few timely runs in his career, ran for 8 touchdowns. And Major Applewhite's record of negative 234 yards rushing, still safe, Ian. And I'm sure the Major would like to be off of that list. I have no doubt, but I'm afraid you're going to be on that list for a long time. Any thoughts on his statistical profile that I've just sort of thrown out there, just the base numbers?
Yeah, a couple of things stood out. Last year was his better year statistically. A lot of that was mostly just that he had a healthy Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell on either side. And this year he had, Bond and Golden were never clicking at the same time exactly. But his touchdowns went up this year. I think not only just because he played more games, but also he was better at throwing in the red zone or near the red zone this year than he was last year. I thought he improved every single year, even though his numbers didn't always reflect that. And rushing, he's really a better runner than those numbers even suggest.
I agree.
Because he was so bad about taking sacks that it plummeted. It's so dumb how college football reflects that in your rushing numbers. When he like caught a bunch of teams by pulling the ball on either zone reads or RPOs, and if he hit a straight line, like even against A&M, that one play where he accidentally went out of bounds, if he had a straight line, he was actually kind of fast.
Yeah, I mean, not an unathletic guy. If he times, I'm not sure he will. But not a lot of quarterbacks run unless
Maybe
it's
he should. Maybe he should.
Maybe he should. I wouldn't be shocked if he dropped a 4.7.
Yeah,
like an honest 4.7, and people might poo-poo that. Hey, you don't know a lot of people in your personal life that run an honest 4.7. And I'm not talking about you idiots with your BS high school times. I don't want to hear it.
The fastest guy that you played pickup with is a 4.8.
That's probably true. Yeah, I mean, if when I played high school football, if you played an opposing running back who ran a 4.55, 4.6, that guy seemed real fast on the field. I promise. Let's talk about another statistic that's a little murkier. Let's call it winnerness. Quarterbacks, fairly or unfairly, especially at Texas, are evaluated by, did you win the game? And if you played poorly but won the game, they'll still say, well, you made a couple of key clutch plays that made you a winner. If you play great and we lose, it's just because you like to rack up statistics, right? So Quinn Ewers tied for 4th all time in wins. Do you know who the numero uno is for wins?
Colt McCoy.
45-8. Whew, that ain't getting challenged in modern football, right?
It's tough.
Yeah, well, any quarterback good enough to play for Steve Sarkisian who wins that frequently won't be there that long. Is that fair? You're not starting 53 games.
If he played freshman, I think it could be possible.
I think you're going
especially with the playoffs.
I think you're going pro after your junior year, buddy. Maybe we go to the playoff, advance to the championship game every year for 3 years in a row. You could get 45 games in that way.
It's hard with Sark because Sark gets these passers. If it was like
it was a dual threat,
JT Barrett type for a different style of coach, I think it could be feasible.
Yeah, and then you and I would have our own complaints when we're dissecting Texas football after the game on Saturday.
If they win, just win, baby.
That's right. Vince Young, 30-2 as a starter. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he was a major contributor to that number.
Hey, he only got to 30 because of Chance Mock. It should have been 29-3.
That's right. Take a bow, Chance. And then, of course, James Slick Street, a very clutch quarterback in some key moments. Part of a larger system and innovation that, I understand true boomers of a certain age have a deep fondness for James Street, as they should. But he was 20-0 as a starter. because he was exactly lighting it up, running and throwing the ball. It was more about leadership and some clutch play and some clutch moments. But
his son Houston kind of vindicated him with his impressive baseball career.
yeah, I mean, and I know guys pretty well who played both college baseball at a high level and pro baseball. And Houston Street, good pitcher, good stuff. A lot of it, they just said it's just guts. Like the dude's just a competitor. Like he strikes people out by force of will. And I think his dad had a little bit of that. So Quinn Ewers,
it just speaks to like the genes are still translating.
There is some winnerosity in the street line. There's no doubt about that. 27-9 as a starter for Texas. Quinn Ewers, 75% of his starts ended in a W. We'll take that. But let me give you like objective with a tinge of subjectivity to the resume. He led Texas to the Big 12 title, where he was the game MVP, if you recall. He dropped 452 yards and 4 touchdowns on the poor Oklahoma State Cowboys. Led Texas to an SEC title game that Texas lost in overtime. Back-to-back college football playoff semifinals. So I think the point is within that 27-9 record, Ian, a lot of consequential and meaningful games at Texas. This isn't a bunch of wins over UTSA. This is Quinn Ewers played in some big games. To give you an idea of that, think about this resume for a college quarterback. Road wins at Michigan, at Alabama, at Texas A&M, 2-1 against OU in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And a playoff win over Clemson.
And Arizona State.
Well, I'm kind of trying to stick to the like name brand territory or like, but yeah, also beat Baylor. Good. But no, I mean, my point is that not a lot of quarterbacks have those scalps sitting on their wall after their college football career.
Yeah, a lot of he got to play in a lot of big brand name games.
Yeah,
in his Texas career, and I know that he was excited to come back for this season because he really wanted to go play Michigan as a one-year Buckeye that still had some affinity for the Ohio State program, and he really wanted to play that A&M game.
So stats are a really good example of when they can lie. That Michigan game. If you look at Quinn's stat line, it's actually not incredible.
I know.
If you watch the game, you're like, that's number 3, baby. That's what it looks like when it's all comes together.
I think my favorite Quinn moment was I was in the press box of the Michigan game in Ann Arbor, and he made that throw. I think probably it's fresh enough people can remember where he's like stepped up in the pocket. He did the thing where for Quinn, he wouldn't step up in the pocket. He'd be on the move coming up in the pocket, saw the linebacker frozen, flicked it past him to Bond or Golden coming over the middle on a deep, skinny crosser slant deal. And this like hush went over the press box room. And the play came, it looked like Texas had the game. But that play happened, and it was just like the air went out of the stadium. A murmur went over the box, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a special team this year.
Well, it was the kind of play and the kind of game where there was a whole another half of football to play, and every Michigan fan and every Texas fan was like, we're just going to run some clock, aren't we? Like, let's get out of here.
Yeah,
this is over. Like everyone agree, this is over. Michigan is like, yeah, it's over. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks for coming up here.
Everyone but Davis Warren.
That's right. I think we'll always have those memories of Quinn, and he's brought some really good ones for us. That's a big part of his legacy. Hey, speaking of legacy, at the risk of reviving a 25-year-old debate, do you want to win a bar bet, Ian?
Yeah.
All right. So for those of you who like to win bar bets, and I've got several good questions that when I used to travel around the world and hang out with people from other countries in Africa and Turkey and stuff. One of the greatest bar bets I had is, did you know that rugby used to be an Olympic sport?
I should know that because I read it.
It was an Olympic sport. I should have stated it as a statement.
Yeah, I believe you. I'm just like, I should have some awareness of that because I know about
rugby was an Olympic sport. in the early 1900s. And
Oh,
the
okay.
last two nations to gold medal in rugby are
New Zealand. No,
the USA and the USA.
really.
Before football became all the rage, particularly college football, before the
Ah,
NFL, the America, unsurprisingly, was a rugby juggernaut. And so I used to make that bar bet with Australians,
yes.
Kiwis,
Uh-huh.
Englishmen, and I would drink free all night because they all just assumed it was anyone but the US, right? So anyway, here's a bar bet in that vein for Texas fans. By winning percentage or gross total volume wins, who had more and a higher percentage at Texas, Sims or Applewhite?
Uh, I did read your article before we recorded this, so um, I don't know how to sell it. It was Chris Sims.
Yeah, that the answer is Sims, and that goes against type, right? Because people
Yeah.
have this assumption of what Sims was versus Major as the gutty winner. But of course, Sims was 26-6 as a starter. Major was 22-8.
So
So
he beat Baylor.
that's right. He beat. That's all he ever did at Texas. So anyway, that's a way to win some money and also infuriate the audience that's watching
Hey,
this. Who's in the
I
Apple?
like that you brought up Sims because Quinn had a few big wins and the 2-1 against Oklahoma, although he played decidedly weaker Oklahoma teams than Chris Sims faced. But he really dodged the Chris Sims rap, you know? Like he could have gone down as I don't think Chris Sims or his fans or his dad are all I don't think any of them are like thrilled with what his legacy is at Texas and how he's remembered, right?
Yeah. Well, there's an objective legacy and there's a subjective legacy. And
Neither are probably that satisfactory. Certainly not the subjective one.
I think that's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
I
The
think
irony of it all, Ian, is that I do know guys who played with Chris Sims on that team, and like they said he's the nicest, like best guy. Like
he's great, and his career as a commentator, I think, make clear that he's like a smart, well-spoken. Yeah, there's some take he has that's sitting in your craw right now, and I don't know what it is.
Well, I just in my experience, and I love both quarterbacks, by the way. But the Applewhite contingent attracted a larger than usual number of people who might have gotten hung on locker hooks in high school and saw Applewhite as their avatar of revenge against the 6'5" blonde guy with who's supposed to be the villain in every 1980s ski movie, right?
Yep.
This is our mountain now, nerds. So I think Chris Sims embodied that guy. He was the villain in Karate Kid in everyone's mind, but he was not that guy. He's actually a really nice, great teammate. But anyway, that's a divergence. I think you nailed it on the Sims Ewers. There are some parallels in terms of their ranking, in terms of the sense that that we almost got there with this guy, but we didn't get there.
And because of them, we didn't because of them.
That's the difference, right? And so that's an interesting thing. I want to tell you about a guy who's going to help you get there when you're buying a house. Do you like houses?
I do.
I do. I prefer living in a house to camping, sleeping outside on the ground,
Easy.
all sorts of alternatives. Sometimes you have to sleep in a doghouse. Ask Ian. Sometimes he gets in the doghouse when he doesn't do his chores. Hey, this guy's going to keep you out of the doghouse, but he's going to get you in the penthouse. That's Gabe Winslow. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. He's got a legacy. That legacy's written all over his Google reviews, and they're all 5 stars, and they're about 7 paragraphs long of all the incredible things this mortgage guy did to solve their problems and deliver excellent, tremendous service. This guy is in the pantheon of mortgage guys. Gabe Winslow, 832-557-1095. He is a passionate Texas Longhorn, and he loves to help Longhorns and their families and everyone else. He'll even help Aggies. All right, Ian, we talked about Quinn Ewers' legacy sort of objectively, maybe a little bit subjectively. Before we talk about turning the page, because that's what this is all about, the program carries on. It's bigger than any one player. What do we think Quinn Ewers Is NFL draft Twitter, which was comprised of some of the dumbest human beings I've ever encountered on the internet, who basically just recycle their takes and then basically also get manipulated by GMs and scouts as unwitting idiots. Are they going to discover things about Quinn that we already knew? Like, what do you think is the take going to be? I think we're about to see a big bash on Quinn, and then maybe in the late hour, a bunch of people scramble for a contrarian perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I think at least one side is going to, at least one team is going to plant something, whether because they want him or because they don't want him and they want to justify it. But he's going to take some heat.
Yeah,
he's always been a guy that's had just the tantalizing, touched by God arm and natural ability throwing the ball, and then not the he's like one of the classic, you have like a Drew Brees who doesn't, I don't think anything throwing relative to the other greats in the NFL, nothing was that easy for Drew Brees. But he wasn't that tall. He didn't have the strongest arm, whatever. He wasn't like an amazing elite athlete for that level. So he developed all the little things he was just amazing at. The footwork, the timing, knowing how to get the ball out quickly, all that stuff. Ewers never really had any of that, right? I mean, there's not to say he was bad at every little thing. There were some little things that he was amazing at, like touch on screens and things like that. But there's going to be people that look at the fundamentals and are like, this is not a great player.
You're about to see a rewrite of a lot of the critiques that E and I have written or talked about over the years, and you're going to see people discover it like it's a brand new country, and it'll be funny. But I do hope it's counterbalanced by the fact that the guy can make some good throws, and I tell you what, he'll go out there and play hurt, and he'll go out there and compete. It won't always be perfect, but that is part of the job as well of being a quarterback. Not, first above all, endure, right?
He'll make some throws like in the workout, or some people will find clip throws from his time at Texas where you're like, boy, if we could just get a little more of that out of him and maybe clean up some of this other stuff. You're going to find throws from his career at Texas that a lot of NFL players can't make.
If I'm Sean McVay, I'm planting all sorts of negative stories that I can and praying that I can get Quinn Ewers in like the early third round somehow. I want to tank him and then see if I can get him on and then develop him for 2 years mechanically, within the construct of that offense. And
have him like, hey, you're gonna live in Stafford's boathouse.
That's right.
And he's gonna talk to you about translating arm into whatever. You know what else on Ewers, before we turn the page on him, it stood out to me in the last couple of days just how he's been an enormously important character in the ongoing soap opera that is Texas football for like 3, 4, 5 years.
5 years.
Maybe 6 years.
We knew about him as a junior at South Lake Carroll at minimum. We knew about him as a sophomore. Honestly.
We knew about him as a sophomore, right?
Yeah.
And then as a junior, it was like he committed to Texas, and then it was just full bore analyzing South Lake Carroll playoff games, the Dodge Bowl against Westlake, where he played hurt and got beat, a sign of things to come. And then the year at Ohio State, it was like, oh my God, we lost Quinn Ewers. This program is in a free fall. And then they hire Sark, and then he was not at Ohio State for very long before there were rumors of like, this new transfer rule, he could be right back.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be very different not having. It's like gonna be like when George Clooney left ER.
I love that you're trying to do relatable things to grow our female fan base. Thank you, Ian. Well done. All right. So you can't talk about ending one chapter without starting another. When Vince Young left, we weren't real sure about this Colt McCoy guy who looked to be 14 years old and weighed 180 pounds at the time.
Yeah.
Colt McCoy turned out okay. There's another guy waiting in the wings who probably have higher expectations for that people are pretty excited about. And national media may even have a word or two to talk about in this subject. His name is Arch Manning. He comes effectively from football royalty. We love what we've seen of him so far, tantalizing looks. He's going to have a growth curve of his own, I can assure you. But this is the starting quarterback for the University of Texas in 2025. How is this offense going to be different? And what can we expect from the Arch Manning era?
Well, Arch throws bombs.
Arch throws bombs.
Our favorite meme. It's probably going to get played out pretty fast here.
I still like it.
It's good. It's so good. Arch throws deep passes more effectively and more aggressively. And that's going to be...
And fearlessly.
Yeah.
For good and bad.
Yes. Yes. Me and Connor were talking about that earlier with the you get to choose 2 of 3 from high yards per attempt, low sack rate, and low interception rate.
Yeah.
And you're going to trade low interception rate with Quinn, but a high sack rate for hopefully low sack rate with Arch, but a higher interception rate potentially.
Higher yards per attempt. We're going to put the ball down the field.
Now you can get all 3 sometimes in college offenses because the defenses aren't as good. But in big games, at least, I think that'll switch. He can run, obviously. I think the big knock he took against Ohio State is a caution that he's not a guy that you just want to run all the time. He's tall. He has a lot of surface area for opponents to aim at. I think the wild Arch was a little more about getting him into the flow of the offense and not as much about like he's actually like he's not Ellinger. He's not, he's not really that kind of quarterback.
Yeah. So I do think there's a Texas fan misconception or misperception that he's Tim Tebow or something. This is, he's not rushing for 700 yards next year. What's going to happen is he's going to drop. We're going to have some high leverage game situations where he will carry the ball.
Yep.
But more often than not, he'll drop back to pass. A couple of options will be covered. He'll tuck it up and run for 11, and we'll get a new set of downs. So it'll look he'll even run less than Colt McCoy, actually. But hopefully it will look more like that when Colt would scramble. I don't know if you recall that, but it was kind of like read. Nope, go, got 7 yards, ran out of bounds. Let's do it again. And that kind of 15-yard gain of not getting a -8 sack, but getting a 7-yard run makes a big difference. It's a chain mover, and it keeps your offense out on the field. It allows you to wear on them.
If you feel Travis Lewis, grab your shoulder, then just go to the ground, see if you can get a flag.
That's right. That's right. So also, Arch is a big, physically strong guy. And, we were talking about that. And Drew Kelson, our buddy and colleague at Inside Texas, went to a couple of practices and stood by him. And he goes, like, he's a big dude, like big, strong guy, especially in his lower half. Big legs, big old butt. Like, he's a guy that's built not just to run, but also be durable. Also, I think mechanically, whether by some, epigenetics or simple teaching of the Manning family, which probably makes more sense, his mechanics are pretty damn good.
Epigenetics.
His mechanics are really sound.
Yeah.
He's a guy that is, when he manages the pocket, he's always in a throwing position.
I think the height and the strong lower base also matter there, where Quinn could get kind of knocked aside in the pocket, and that probably was part of what led to him not being as comfortable or effective there. You watch Arch in the spring game. Obviously, he knows he's not going to get hit, but he's not afraid to make small movements and hang in there, and he's not afraid to take the hit at all.
So there's a type of pressure which your pocket is moving and not collapsing, but they're getting depth, but they're still blocked. So I want y'all to picture that. And you get bumped into. you get brushed by. A guy reaches out and he's still blocked, but he grabs your shoulder pad as you're throwing. Arch can throw through that because he's 6'4", 225.
Yep.
A lot of college quarterbacks can't. They get jostled. They don't have enough base. They don't have enough strength. And they don't have that confidence that they can hang in there and get jostled around. Ben Roethlisberger, an extreme example of a guy who can, Cam Newton, who can literally take hits and have guys draped on their thigh and they just shake them off and throw the ball down the field. So I think that's an added element that's going to be very interesting for the downfield passing game. And I just think it's going to be an interesting change for the offense. What do you think we're going to do dispositionally different in terms of our routes or receivers, or like what do we need to go get in the portal to complement him aside from what we have on campus?
I think that's a great question. There's going to be multiple offseason articles. Sark does change his offense rather dramatically for each quarterback.
He does.
He's got his core deal, but like Tua, Mac, Casey, Quinn, 4 very different offenses.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see more 5 guys out in routes, drop back passing. And I think we're going to see the post route. I mean, Sark is never going to give up on the post route, but he had to shelve it a little bit with Quinn and the team because it just wasn't happening. I think we're going to see that tick back up a lot, maybe. So you definitely need the guys to run that. I don't know. The receiving tight end for Arch, if you watch Arch or any of his brothers, any of his uncles, the tight end was always a big deal in their offenses. Texas has a lot of options there, so I don't think they're going to go to the portal.
We need our Dallas Clark to develop.
Yeah. What stands out to you?
Those things. I mean, it's easy to say, hey, we need Jeremiah Smith to transfer. He and Arch would
sure
light it up quite a bit. But short of that, I think we need some guys who can separate. And I think we need a guy or two who can go up and go get the ball, because I think Arch will put the ball in peril to make a play. And it would be nice to have a receiver who can make him right. Golden, in that regard, would have been really nice to have return.
Yeah.
Because I think he really showed his ability down the back half of the season. I think people underestimated him. He's
going to have an NFL career that makes us say, like, why that guy feels like that guy should have done more.
Yeah, there are different phyla of NFL receivers, broadly speaking, and there's freaks, and there's like just good at being a receiver type dudes. And the Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions is a good example of what Golden could be at his very apogee. I'm not predicting that level of success, but Golden's a lot better and more refined than people think. And
it's like Jerry Rice too. Those are the guys that actually translate. Because in college, people get excited about the dudes that are breaking open.
Yes.
And in the NFL, it's just not going to happen.
In the NFL, you better be able to take the ball from people. And
yeah.
I don't know what Matthew Golden's handshake is like, but I bet it's pretty strong.
He's a little bigger in person than you think.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Ian, it wouldn't be a deep dive if we didn't go on a tangents about Matthew Golden's hand strength and his actual physique when we're trying to celebrate Ewers' legacy. Congratulate him on a great Texas career. Wish him the very best at the next level, but also look forward to the future, because that ultimately is what a college football program is about. It's like the ending of Friday Night Lights, right? The movie, they lose that devastating game to Carter, but then as they're all hanging out in the parking lot at the end, kind of debriefing, there's the group of young kids coming up into the high school that they throw the ball to, and they pass it on. So Texas forever. And congrats again to Quinn Ewers on his legacy. And we're looking forward to the Arch Manning madness to commence. For Ian Boyd, I'm Paul Bothington Sand. Thanks for watching the Deep Dive.